we'll say a prayer.
So we'll start with prayer. If you'd like to join me, please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for the signs of spring and the beautiful days like today. Watch over us as we head toward a well-deserved spring break. Please keep all those that are traveling safe and let us come back rested and ready for the last stretch of our school year. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I'll call this meeting to order. Thank you for coming to our March 11th school board meeting. We will start our meeting off with recognition. Dr. Clendenning.
Yes, today's recognition actually is a special presentation. Mr. Rose's engineering class. I've been doing a lot of work with CAD and some things, and this student that we're bringing forward today, Daisy Cobble, is going to demonstrate what they're doing in engineering class, and she has a presentation for us.
Great.
Mr. Rose.
All right. As a very brief background and probably the most accurate introduction I can give to Daisy, or for Daisy, right here. And where's the presentation? I need a step, guys, what I need. All right. Now, hey, just a second, man. Get back up here.
a great team.
So far. Now, this is Google, from what I can tell.
Yes.
I'm a Microsoft guy because I'm over 40.
I'm sorry. Can I present for you and you can talk?
No, I just show you present. That's
Yeah.
what it. All right.
And then
Fantastic.
you get your
Yes.
Hey, we try.
Man. All right. When we're working with AutoCAD and projects in the engineering class, this is a very typical view for me. I come into the AutoCAD lab and lots of folks poring over the design that they're working on. And then what caught my attention was, this was fairly early in the first semester, I turned and I see Daisy working on her project. And I realized we've got somebody who has gone way beyond what I was originally expecting. And so what ended up happening is I started watching. Daisy has a very natural understanding of applied three-dimensional geometry. And as a result, her products that she puts out are beyond a lot of what I see from the typical student. And so I've given her an opportunity to work on a particular project of her own choosing right now. But what she's going to do today is show you a couple of the projects she's worked on. Some are the projects that the rest of the class are working on, and then the one that she's spent the most time on most recently, which is entirely her own. So with that, assuming I still remember how to use this, Daisy Cobble. All right.
So in class, we usually use AutoCAD to create models and 3D models of things. This is it's a computer program so that we can make boxes and shapes and different effects in a more of an X block or
They're asking for this.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Should I repeat that? Okay. So in class, we usually use AutoCAD, which is a computer program that we use to create 3D shapes and models and different like boxes and such. In this, we can see an X-ray view of what I have made, which is a pretty basic project, the first one that we did, to understand what it was. It was just a box with 2 holes in it, and you can see that it's hollow, but you can see the 2 holes going through it, going in and going out. We use it on an XY axis so that it's a 3D shape. These were 2 of my other projects that I did. You saw this one earlier. It was more of a copying a model that I had, but this one over here was a puzzle project that we had where we created a little puzzle with Braille so that people who are blind could see feel what shape it is. So it says frog in Braille, and you can see the shape of a frog, feel it with your hands. So it's an actual 3D printed project that I have, and it comes together, comes apart, and it can only go one way. So the different little puzzle pieces over there can only go in one way. And then this was my initial idea. Whenever I had the prompt to have this, I was looking through different things online, and I'm like, well, that would just be copying someone else's project, or this would just be something that I could make but isn't really fun. This caught my attention. It was a little cloth that like formed around someone's hand and was able to move and go back and forth, and it could just mold to your hand shape. And I thought that was really interesting, so I wanted to have a try at it. So my first attempts, multiple attempts, were very bad. They are way too jagged. They don't go together very well. You can kind of see my planning process. I had this shape pretty early on, but it was very hard to work with, and different shapes and sizes and thicknesses are all combined over here, and they show my thought process, but it didn't really go together very well. And learning to convert between AutoCAD and the 3D printer is very interesting. So this was my actual project. It has more rounded edges. It actually has it's a tessellating shape, so it can go on top of each other and connect that way instead of just having hooks on it, which seemed a little more complicated to me. I don't know why. But it has little divots that it can connect to each other, and it creates little shapes, such as this one. So this is what I had been working on. We printed these off, and I connected them together, and they mold into whatever shape that you want. And it's a little malleable. It's like fluid, and all snaps well together, and it hurts your hands very bad. Yeah, what this could be used for is like makeshift cloth, or like prototyping some other things, making like little houses or such. But the most fun I've had is with making it with toys. So I give these to my friends during their classes, and when we're not supposed to be working. And creating little shapes and things. You can see this was when we were having free time, but we could make little cubes and have things that I didn't even think of, like a little staircase over here, just like bending it in new ways that I didn't think we could. And yeah, it was pretty fun. They always are begging me to play with them, so it's pretty fun to see how it's brought everyone together and how they play with it and the new ideas that they create as well as me.
And just lest anyone think that Daisy is about to take off and go to college, your current grade is, yeah, you're a sophomore. So I just wanted to just acknowledge that we've got some amazing students, and they are doing some really neat work. And a lot of it is based on their own ideas. And that, I think, is one of the great things we have going here, is we have the ability for students to discover who they are, but then also to thrive while they're doing it. So thank you.
Great job, Daisy. Thank you, Mr. Rose. Great presentation. We will move on to public and board comments at this time. If there's anyone in the public that has any comments they'd like to make on today's agenda, please step forward. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to board comments. Music Council. Athletic Council.
No update tonight.
Legislative Council. Oh, no report. Yeah, that would be me. Superintendent Strategic Task Force Council.
No report.
Superintendent Strategic Plan Projects.
I do have a report, actually. The Employer of Choice Committee meets again at the tail end of the month. I'm meeting with all the subcommittee chairs to go through their work. We'll be back in front of you in May with a recommendation. I will tell you they've done terrific work, and I think you'll be interested to see what they have in store for you in May.
Thank you. Communication Committee.
We did meet. We just talked a little bit more about the importance of internal communication, and we brainstormed some ideas on how to use our thought exchange. We also discussed new ways to educate the community while creating some ambassadors for our schools.
Very good. Nice. Okay. Collective bargaining.
No update. We are working to schedule a meet and greet with the new members of the collective bargaining from the school. I think the last time I was traveling, so wasn't able to make those dates. So we'll reschedule that to a future date.
All right. Central 9. You know if there's any.
The only thing is just Thursday is
Right.
the tour of Central Line. Mrs. Worland, Mr. Wertz, and I will be attending. Anyone else would like to attend, you're more than welcome. Starts at 6:30. We'll be done around 8 or 8:30.
Nice. All right. RDC.
Nothing that pertains to the schools. So,
All right. Thank you. Moving on. Next thing up is the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
There is a motion for approval. Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Wertz, I have a couple comments, please.
Yep.
Tonight, we are making 3 recommendations for leadership in our district. Mrs. Moran to go to Custer Baker Intermediate School to be the new principal. We want to recommend that, and we're looking forward to that. Replacing Mrs. Moran will be Cole Zook, as a recommendation coming from North Decatur. I'm not sure about the people from North Decatur, though. I think that's where Katie Smith came from. So, this is your elementary, right?
Yes.
Yep. And then we also have Mrs. Andrea Corey coming to us, and she'll be leading the Northwood Owls.
All right. We have both of those. Stand up just for so we know. Here. I thought so. Welcome. All right. Are there any more questions or comments? Hearing those, all in favor signify by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, Franklin. All right, moving on. Superintendent reports. Dr. Clendenning.
Yes, we have the union contingency today. Mrs. Clark, Mrs. Small, Mrs. Stone talking about the SDE National Conference and the 10X supported grant.
You want us to have a mic?
Yes, right, sure, right there, right in front of you. Yeah.
We first wanted to take the opportunity to thank Franklin Community Schools and their partnership with Johnson Memorial Hospital for the opportunities that they've given the faculty and staff over the last few years through these amazing 10X opportunities. And so we're just going to take a few minutes to share Vegas Revisited. I don't know if any of you saw our 10X proposal. We kind of titled it, "What Happens in Vegas Comes Back to Franklin." So we're just going to share a little bit of what's going to come back, what's been coming back to Franklin for the past 7 months, okay? When you think of Vegas, you probably think of things like the Bellagio Hotel fountain, the slot machines, or the famous Vegas showgirls. Not necessarily the things that we saw in Vegas, like schmoozing with elementary school principal royalty, Principal Brooks, or Cuckoo Kangaroo, or visiting the Super Kids booth at the Vegas at SDU's conference. Instead, we spent our week in Las Vegas at the Venetian Hotel attending Staff Development for Educators National Convention, which happens every year. And we attended some amazing professional development opportunities. And so each of us are just going to take the opportunity to share one thing that we've brought back into our classroom that we learned in Vegas. Often in the kindergarten classroom, I hear, "I'm done, now what?" every day. So previously, when I was doing literacy centers or center rotations, I did a lot of set a timer. You're at your center for 10 minutes if their attention can hold it that long. And when the timer goes off, we rotate. And that was my version of having control over the situation. And so I went to a session in Vegas called Early Finishers, I'm Done, Now What? And it was by renowned teacher, kindergarten teacher, Katie Mincy. She's got a blog and she travels around and speaks at a lot of conventions. And she had this free choice center idea. And I've always wrangled with the idea of free choice because with 5 and 6-year-olds, it could get kind of hairy. And so I wanted to give it an opportunity, and we've done that this year. And so I was just going to share a little bit of how it works. So we have our free choice board over here that gives our center options that they can choose from. There's 8 different choices that they can choose from. So again, it's forced choice. I'm coming up with the choices, but they get to decide when they want to use them. They also have, he's holding his little menu card on it. It's got labels A through H on it. And when they choose their center, they cross it off and then they hang it up. So they hang it up, and you can see there's only 4 choices per spot there. So if all of them are taken, sorry, you'll have to try that one another day. So after they do that, they find the coordinating letter, and they go to our center basket, and they go to the basket, and all the supplies that they need are in that basket. So at the beginning of kindergarten, it's still a little hairy, like everything is when you're trying to get rules and procedures going on in kindergarten. But now if you were to walk into my classroom during center time, it would be noisy and it would probably look a little chaotic to you, but the students are actively engaged in something that they are taking their choice in, and it's fostering autonomy in the classroom. They're excellent at putting the things back when they're done. And a lot of the centers that we are doing are focused on our focal point for our focused instruction time, which is our RTI time. And so while the content changes with every week or every few weeks as we change our content focus, the games and activities are the same. So there's not a big learning curve for each time. So we're not wasting a lot of time to explain how to do everything. And this is just an example. Our current focused instruction time is consonant blends. So Chloe's over here working on consonant blend clips. Now we do the clips for a lot of centers. So she knows, she goes and gets that basket and she takes it wherever she wants. And then she clips for whatever the consonant blends are. They have to figure out what the picture is and then figure out what the blends are. Over here, we're just applying our reading knowledge of the consonant blends, working on this pocket chart here. And then Susan here is working on a consonant blend cut and paste. So these are all their free choice that they made for that day, but it all goes back to that focused instruction. And that is all I have. So here is Jennifer.
Okay. When we went, at the time I thought I was teaching mainly math this year, and then things got changed, but I focused a lot on math, and these are some things that So a lot of the workshops I went to were about fluency and increasing students' understanding of how numbers go together and how they work. It's all about the understanding the flexibility so then they can get quicker at their math facts. So these are some bracelets we did in the beginning of the year where they worked on really figuring out how the numbers went together. So they took their bracelets and moved the beads to find out all the different ways to make a number each day, all the ways to make 1, all the ways to make 2, all the ways to make 3, and so on through 10. And then some other things that we learned or we've been working on with math facts, because math facts are always a problem. So one way we've been doing it are these new flashcards where they make them themselves and then they flip them over and they can use them for every number, and they write what the problem is and then the answers on the back side. So they were practicing their facts as they made the flashcards and keep practicing with them. It's just a picture of one little girl doing her flashcards. I learned a lot about math games. A lot of them are like what we use in everyday math, but they're just a different take on them. We have somebody using the shakers, which I have a video clip of that in a minute. More shakers, which the kids love. And then here are some bump games, but they're all working together. They're having fun. They don't realize they're learning, and they're practicing with their fluency, improving their fluency. The shakers were one of their favorite ones. And here's a little clip of my kids showing you how to use the shakers. We have volume right there.
I have 61, 36.
They're finding the numbers and then they're comparing it to the vaccine place value and then
54. 14. 54 is greater than 14. Oh. 56.
Good joke. So this is one way I brought the gaming part of Vegas back to the classroom. The kids really like it.
Of course, you make a really great joke, and then I have to go. Okay. I went to a lot of language arts and reading and writing sessions, and this is one that I went to. This lady's name is Jen Jones. She did a session on iHeart Guided Reading, and she'd probably be considered a guided reading guru. But I think what's really cool about her is that she's also a classroom teacher. So she's right in the trenches with us and implementing these things in her own classroom. You want to go ahead? One really simple thing, quick and easy, that I brought back from her session is the whole idea of book bins or personal libraries. My students, while they love to visit the classroom library, they spend a lot of time trying to choose a book out of boxes and boxes and crates of books. And so during library time or during sometime at the beginning of the week, they get their bin from the shelf. It's got a tag on it with their name, and they know it's theirs, and they fill it with books that they want to read for the week or for the month. It gives them ownership in what they're reading. Our school's really trying to foster really the love of reading. Often we just read because we have to in school, but we want kids to love it. So kids are able to choose reading counts books. They're able to choose just books for entertainment, all different genres. And then those bins go with them in different places throughout the classroom. They use them while I'm working with other students. And the books are always there at their fingertips. Something else that's kind of cool is we've been talking about reading different genres. So after school, I like to flip through the kids' book bins. And I was happy to see that when I pulled the book bin in the middle here, one of the students had taken some of our genre talk and had pulled some fairy tales and put in the book bin to read. So I know that what we were talking about in class was actually going into their brain and staying there, and they were implementing it when they were given ownership to do it. I asked some students what they thought about book bins or personal libraries in the classroom, and they like them for lots of different reasons, but a lot of them like them just because it helps them keep it organized. In a second grade classroom, books go missing a lot. He's got my book, she has my book, where's my library book? And so it's a good place for them to keep their things, their books and the things they've chosen. And they just like it that I let them choose whatever they want. I think it's one of the main things that makes it important to them. Finally, just kind of sum it all up, we went to Vegas and there were a lot of goals and expectations for our trip. Some of them were not met, like we didn't come back as like mega millionaires. I think I won like $7 on the slot machine. But one thing that did happen is that we really did come back as a rejuvenated, refreshed, and inspired team. It was really cool to learn really amazing things from fantastic educators that you like read blogs and visit their Facebook pages. But I think another thing that we have to remember is that this time gave us time to grow in a relationship as colleagues. And I think that brings back such a good culture and climate to our own school building that that was what made our 10X even just go above and beyond. One of the really inspirational things though that we did here was what happened on the very last day. We heard a man named Clint Pulver, and he uttered some of the most inspirational words that I think even anybody that maybe that you're not even a teacher, that you can take these words and apply them to your life. And we wanted to just show, it's a real quick, we don't want to take up a lot of your time, but it's a real quick clip just to kind of sum everything up. Again, we really appreciate the chance to share our thoughts with you. even though it's extremely nerve-wracking. We do appreciate it. So thank you very much.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." So I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. So I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "No, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." From that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
Great presentation. Thank you. All right. Another one.
Yep.
Okay.
Patty, congratulations on following that. Patty Kinney works in transportation, and she's going to share her 10X.
Don't have any fancy pictures or anything. They said make it short. I'm going to make it short. I do thank you for the opportunity to go. 59 years old. I flew for my first time. I got my wings. They gave me my wings. I got to sit in the co-pilot seat of the airlines, and it was a wonderful experience. I went to Seattle, Washington. You probably think, what does Seattle, Washington have to do with transportation? Well, I also am the health and wellness person for transportation, and Seattle is the perfect place to walk. Our hotel was downtown. We walked everywhere. We walked to the Space Needle. We walked to the Art Garden, which is just beautiful. We walked to friends of ours that we went to see. She worked downtown, and we walked to her office. We had a park right next to our hotel that had some trails in it, and we walked there. My husband works nights, at the post office downtown. So when I'm sleeping, he's working. When I'm working, he's sleeping. This was a very nice time to spend with just he and I. Like I said, I had never flown before. My first time, I did it without medicine and alcohol. and I survived, and it was fine. And it was talking about being rejuvenated. The whole trip, they said that the weather is never that good. We went on fall break. The weather was perfect. No rain, believe it or not, in Seattle, no rain. The sun was shining. It was warm in the daytime, cool at night. The day we left on Wednesday when we went to the airport was the first foggy day we had on our way to the airport to fly back home. But some friends of ours that live there, we haven't seen for 4 years. So we got to spend time with them. We got to go to church with them at their church. We got to see the fish market. Mm-hmm. We went to the fish market, and they didn't throw me a fish. So thank goodness I probably wouldn't have caught it. Mm-hmm. But just to see them work together, and all that, the market itself is just amazing. Actually, we went there twice. And just to stand there and watch the fish market, how they all communicate with the people, and it's like you've known them, like they know you. But it was a wonderful time. What I brought back was just a lot of relaxation, just to get away. If you don't know how transportation works, getting away is nice. And I do thank you very much. Like I said, I had never flown. This is the first real nice getaway that my husband and I have had since our girls have gotten married and moved on and we have our grandkids. So this was really nice for Mike and I. And I do truly thank you for it. And I'm sorry I don't have any pictures or anything because they said make it short. But thank you very much.
Congratulations on your wings. All right, moving on. Mr. Sewell, Indiana Department of Education.
Okay, about a year ago, the Indiana State Legislature passed a law that required the Department of Education to do an audit of all school corporation safety plans. And so with the help of the building principals, we went through that process over the last few weeks, and I'm pleased to report we got our letter back from DOE. We had just some minor things that we learned. We learned we have to do our first fire drill within the first 10 days of school and not just within the first month. So that was the one thing, the one takeaway that we'll make sure we're on top of for next year. But other than that, they had a range of recommendations that we addressed in our safety plan, and we provided all of the related documentation and went through that audit, I'd say, with flying colors. And I appreciate the assistance of the building principals in getting that done so quickly. Be glad to take any questions, but that's the highlights. We're in good shape.
All right, thank you. All right. Next option, investment options. Mrs. Gross.
Good evening. As you know, the finance team is always looking for new ways to make some extra revenue. So in my first few weeks on the job and looking through the financial statements, it was obvious that this team, the board, and the corporation had done a really good job in building a $6 million rainy day fund. We need those funds to make sure that we are stable and can operate in case of emergency, that kind of thing. But when I saw that balance, I thought, hey, we might have some opportunity to invest at least a portion of that money and make some more investment income. So I looked into, my initial thoughts were CDs. I looked at 1, 2, and 3 year CDs. But as you know, that means locking our money into a CD for that amount of time. Another option that came to fruition that was actually comparable to the interest rate on CDs was money markets. In the current market, we can get a money market account for 2.5%. And those funds would remain liquid in case of emergency or anything that comes up where we need those funds. So right now, our money market account that our funds are in are a little less than 1%, and that yields about $58,000 a year. And we were able to negotiate the money market rate of 2.5% with our existing bank, which is First Financial. So as you can see, that will yield a little over $100,000 a year, even if we just stick to the $6 million rainy day account. So huge win.
Yeah,
I'm happy
sure.
to report that.
Absolutely.
And we'll continue to, as we move to the new accounting structure and analyze the cash flow over the next year, we may even be able to transfer more money into that account.
Very nice. So $100,000, you can do that every time you come back, right?
I hope so.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very good win. Thank you. All right. We are going to move on to action items. Mr. Mercer.
I didn't have the heart to tell Mrs. Gross that every time she comes up here, somebody's already spent the money before she even gets it. Congratulations to her on a really good early kid. Congratulations to Cheryl on her move to Webb, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Zook and Mrs. Korick. And chances are you probably didn't know this. When we get to the financial portion of the board meeting, this is the board's most favorite part of the night. Not really. But let's cut through a couple things that we have to get to. This is the first time actually you've seen this. This is the first time that we've issued a resolution to move money from the education fund to the operations fund. We've done this, at least this time, quarterly. And so the amount that I'm requesting that you move tonight is a little over $1.8 million, actually almost $1.9 million. So this covers the first 3 months of the year. Chances are in June, Tina will come back and request that you do the same thing. And so right now we've kind of scripted out in a 3-month window. So what I'm here to ask tonight is your permission to approve this resolution that will allow us to move money from the education fund into operations to allow that to get back above the red line.
Move for approval.
All right. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Next item up, discussion items, revision of the 2020 board goals.
I didn't include anything in writing, at least at this point. I wanted to have a quick conversation with the board about the board goal. As some of you in the audience may be aware, the board has set a goal back in 2016 that we would elevate over a 4-year period to a 9% operating balance in the general fund. And we've hit our target each year for the first couple of years. And then the state went and pulled the rug out from underneath us, took away the general fund and changed that. So in our winter retreat, we talked about what the new board goal should be. And I wanted to give you an update and then at least plant the seed for us to come back and talk again. The one thing in living through this for the very first time with the entire business office is we've had a bit of an oddity in the first couple of months. First of all, January was a 3-pay month, so it's not a normal month in terms of expenditures. And then February was a short month. And then March is going to be a short month too because we have spring break coming. And in those 2 months, you don't have a consistent payroll vision. And so the first normal month for us in this year is actually April, not to mention the fact that everything is brand new to us. Beyond that, we have a new accounting structure this year that we're managing through. That places your old general fund operating balance in 2 buckets, one in education and one in operations. So we've talked about how we can manage through that. That's another variable. We're also proposing a referendum, and if we win that referendum, We need to talk about how we handle raises both for this year and next. I guess what I'm getting at is there's a whole bunch of variables that really make it difficult for us at this moment to establish a board goal. Beyond that, and this is just something I want to throw out for the process, the strategic planning process actually expires the end of 2019. And so something for the board to consider, not that I'm trying to dump this on Tina and get out of it, because I'll do whatever you want me to do, but it might be something that we really want to watch for a few months and then meld into the new strategic planning process and establish a new board goal. I will tell you that at this moment in time, the education fund has an operating balance of 5.43%, and the operations fund has an operating balance of 7.75%. So between the two, you have about a 13% operating balance. Now, as the board is well aware, that's a little bit misleading simply because capital projects always has a carryover, and so does bus replacement. And so that was one of the things we talked about in the winter retreat. However, if you meld that into the strategic planning process, what I think we can do here is to make a good choice, a choice that the business office has a chance to hit, that you can feel good about too. And frankly, from where I stand here on the 11th day of March, I don't think we're prepared to offer a recommendation. But certainly would be happy to have any conversation advancing forward and then determine at a date of your choosing when we do want that goal. I will tell you that the business office desperately wants a goal. It's just if we set a goal now and you set it wrong, we're going to set ourselves up to fail, and I wouldn't recommend that. And right now it's really hard for us to establish what that goal may be, which may be the first time that I've actually pushed away from a decision.
Well, it sounds like for good reason, right? I mean,
Maybe.
So what kind of timing do you think, are we talking at the end of the school year? Are you talking the summer? I guess.
Depending on what you do, I think certainly summer is absolutely doable. If you meld it into the strategic planning process, you probably want to wait, because I don't know what Dr. Clendenning has in mind, but probably he's going to get started on that second half of the year. If you meld it into that, you might wait a little bit later. So theoretically, you could go without a board goal for the year and see where we land and then back up and make a decision. We're going to be as fiscally prudent in this department with transition to Tina as we've always been. You can see what she's done here tonight. So all the way from summer to we don't make a decision until we do the strategic planning later in the year. It's really going to be your call, and we'll do whatever you expect us to do.
Regarding the strategic plan, we are going to get started this summer, and then we have our summer retreat. It is my desire to have that finished in the third quarter of this year so that we would have that around end of October, 1st of November, and then move forward with that. So that would be a collaborative effort with many stakeholders, but that would be my thought as we travel forward.
Good. Tina, what does that do? If we wait till November, what does that do for your team? Just the ambiguity of not having the goal.
They'll continue to approach everything very conservatively, as Mr. Mercer has in the past, and I think it would be I think it would be responsible of us to go through a year with the cash flows, the new accounting structure, and just make sure that we make an educated and informed decision about the goal.
Okay.
And for it to go along with the strategic planning, I would highly recommend that it does.
Makes
That
sense.
way we don't have to adjust later.
Sure. Makes sense. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Mercer. All right, excuse me, moving on to FCHS Ag Program Land Usage.
Yes, we're going to have some special guests come and present. Mrs. Giese is the new ag teacher for us. Started in January, so she's excited about some ideas and thoughts, and met with Mr. Ahaus, with Mr. Beckman, to talk about what a long-term vision could be for our ag program. And so today, we're pleased to have Mrs. Giese and Mr. Rose come up and share information about the journey of ag and where we're headed, and then a couple of ideas that we need to kind of back up and move to an action item if it is the board's choice at that time regarding some land and using it for the ag class.
I had a presentation.
Yeah.
It's somewhere. Oh, the presentation link. That's where I should have headed. Okay. Thank you. All right, well, I'm Alicia Giese. I am the new agriculture teacher here at Franklin. I just started in January, so I'm very new, very green. But I'm so excited. I feel very blessed because the program is amazing and the students you guys have here at Franklin are amazing, and they have made my experience here absolutely wonderful. But I have a great love and passion for agriculture and being hands-on with where your food comes from and how your food is produced. I did an awesome program at Needham Elementary over the last 2 years where I started a school garden at Needham with the students and the staff at Needham, and it was a very amazing, successful experience. The kids loved it, and I would love to create something similar but bigger, on a bigger scale at Franklin here. And it was kind of amazing. I feel like the stars have somewhat aligned because our alumni president, along with Tom Beckman, who has been a backbone of the ag program here for a long time, have had a similar vision. So when we all came together, it just seemed like the right time. And there is 9 acres right behind on the north side of the greenhouse, very close to our ag room, that could be available to convert into usable land for our agricultural students, that would provide not only a great learning opportunity, but could provide a hands-on experience for them producing foods that could go right back into our cafeterias. Jill Overton, who is the food service director here at Franklin Schools, is a huge supporter of local foods, and her and I have had many conversations about putting our foods that our students grow into our cafeterias. So there are a lot of opportunities for our kids to not only understand where their food comes from, but be able to see it really come full circle. So we kind of had the idea of maybe naming our program, the facility, an agricultural center for education, because we have different phases that Kent will talk to you guys about. But we would like to see it grow, but we'd really like to see it focused on education and growth, not just for our agricultural students, but it could really be an opportunity for all Franklin students to learn and grow from this center. So the center could benefit the students by providing hands-on experiential learning every single day. I'm a huge fan of experiential learning, especially in agriculture. I feel like it's really hard to learn agriculture without getting your hands dirty. So having an opportunity for my ag students to get to go outside every day and work with the earth and see how things are growing is really the best way to learn. If you want to get better at welding, you weld. If you want to get better at public speaking, you speak. If you want to learn agriculture, you participate in agriculture. And then I feel strongly, and Taylor here, our wonderful president, is going to talk to you guys a little bit about our SAE program. But one facet of agricultural education is SAE, which is a supervised agricultural experience. And basically what SAEs do is they give our students hands-on application for what we teach them in the classroom. But one of the downsides to our the way that the world has changed is that a lot of our students don't live on a farm. They don't have a lot of access to an agricultural opportunity to complete their SAEs. But if we were able to develop this 9 acres into an agricultural center, it would be a wonderful opportunity for our students to complete their SAEs with us at the school. They would have that opportunity, the land, the agriculture, potentially the animals, to be able to do those experiences. And then it would also provide non-agricultural students the opportunity of learning. At Needham, we did a really cool thing where we painted the fence. I think it's a really neat opportunity to be able to incorporate not only agriculture into these outdoor experiences, but music and art and lots of different opportunities, science, education. It's not just agriculture. It can really incorporate almost every facet of things that we do here at Franklin. I honestly would love our student over here that did our presentation earlier to help us out in agriculture. There's ag engineering is a huge industry. So there's a lot of opportunities for non-agricultural students as well. And then the opportunities to be able to put that food right back into our cafeterias. There are schools around Indiana that are already doing this, that are growing all the proteins that they serve in their cafeteria. They grow on site at their schools, which is amazing. And it really connects our students not only to what they're growing, but the food that they're eating. So they understand where it's coming from. It's local, it's grown right in their backyards, and they can literally watch the process unfold, which is really amazing for a lot of our students who have no connection to their food, where it's coming from. So this facility could really open up a lot of doors for not only my agricultural students, but everyone within Franklin schools. So Kent here is going to talk a little bit about the phases, and then Taylor is going to talk about a little bit about our SAE program.
All right, thanks, Alicia. As Alicia notified you here when she got started, my name is Kent Gross. I'm currently the president of the Alumni Association here at Franklin Community High School. So as she kind of started off with there, this is kind of a big project. When you start looking at something like this is a very big project. So just to kind of let you know, in reference to what we're talking about, this 9 acres is just located to the north side of the school here. As you can see on to your left there, it gives you a representation of what we're looking at doing here, size-wise of the project. This photo here on the right-hand side is just a topo map of that layout. The darker the color, the higher the elevation. It kind of gives you a reasonable expectation of how water might flow across the property if we get this property. So Alicia was talking about phases. I think the worst thing you can do when a project like this comes up is jump in 2 feet, blinded, blinders on, get in over your head right off the bat, and you're a complete failure right out the gate. So in order to kind of alleviate that, what we're proposing doing is kind of setting this up in phases. And I think from that standpoint is it's very easy to set objectives and how you meet those objectives. So our plan is that implement this in phases. We'd come back into the board at the beginning of each phase. We'd say, hey, this is what our plan is. This is what we're going to do. This is our scope. This is our cost. This is our schedule. This is our objectives. And those objectives need to be measurable. You get to the end of this thing, how do you know if you failed or not there? You need to be measurable. So, and at the end of that phase, we come back in and say, this is what we did, all right, before we move to the next phase. So our plan is that every time we come up in here to start to the next phase, you're going to get a presentation from us, all right? So phase 1, we're going to keep it pretty simple. If we get access to the area, we're going to convert it over to crops. We'll probably, this year, if we get it, no-till soybeans in. And then we're going to have a small, probably a 1/3 acre or so set up for vegetable plot, all right? Now, one thing with this right now is that field is all coarse fescue. All right, so it'd be easy to no-till soybeans into it, but to get vegetables into it, it's going to take some work. We're going to basically probably turn that over with the plow and then come back in and till it up. Cost-wise, I think from our standpoint is the FFA alumni through some donations and some of our own money. We'll offset the cost of the first year of doing that for phase 1. Most of the vegetables that we're going to plant out there will probably come from vegetables we've started in the greenhouse already that were probably left over from our greenhouse sales in the spring. So those will be moved out to there. So costs should be pretty minimal for the first year. And we hope any residuals that we obtain from the sales of those crops, we pour that back into the next year's efforts. So phase 1 is simply converting the field to crops and setting up a small vegetable patch. When you start moving into phase 2 now is we start wanting to add to that. We keep our vegetable garden. We look to expand it. And we also look to maybe start a nursery or orchard operation as well. And keeping the remainder of the field back into a second year of crops. We want to take this kind of a phase one step at a time, because after phase 1, we want to sit down with you and say, hey, what went well? What didn't go well? What did we learn? What didn't we learn? What can we do better? Because you don't want to fail right out of the gate. It makes you look bad. Big time. And we're not here to do that. Nope, back way. So ultimately, what's this thing look like? We talked about phase 1, phase 2. This is kind of phase 3, but once again, phase 3 could be broken down into additional phases if we need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand the vegetable production, expand our orchard. We look to put a building on site because we're going to need a multi-purpose building there to handle both livestock side and the vegetable side. Now, there's been some thoughts around expanding that building, making it a little bigger there, that we could also use it for some storage space. I know there's some storage space needs for a couple folks, or the band or performing arts or something like that might need some storage space. We could do that. We could utilize that space for that if needed to. Keep crops pasture in place. Possibly look to put some Christmas trees on the facility, on the acreage. But once again, as we go through these phases, those might change a little bit because we're going to learn. All right, we're going to learn as we go. As we get through phase 1 into phase 2, into this phase right here, this is probably the most expensive part of the phase. You know, this is going to cost you to put a building on the site there. So like I said, this is long-term. This is our long-term vision, but we want to kick it off with the phases to begin with, basically. And I think that is the last slide we've got. So what I'd like to do is kind of bring Taylor up here, kind of give her perspective on an SAE opportunity.
So good evening. My name is Taylor Roy, and I'm currently serving as Franklin's president and the District 8 president. And I highly encourage you to consider letting us add this farm plot to our program. So when you're first inducted into FFA in the agriculture classroom, you're taught that there's a 3 curriculum model. This 3 curriculum model is, of course, agriculture education, which is Ms. Giese and Tom Beckman's role. And then there's the supervised agriculture experience. And then, of course, there's FFA. And these all 3 are very important and integral into your success in FFA. So what an SAE can do for you, it can provide you getting your green hand, your chapter, your Hoosier, and your American degree. And it also can lead you to running for offices and getting that hands-on experience that you need in agriculture. So we don't most of our school isn't a rural community, and I personally don't come from an agriculture background. And if it wasn't for Mr. Beckman providing me with the opportunity to show sheep at his farm, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have a supervised agriculture experience. So I went to Mr. Beckman's to work. I was in sheep production. I learned how to ration feed, administer vaccinations, rake a sheep for a county fair. Most importantly, I learned responsibility. I learned dedication to something. I learned how to be dependent upon something. And I learned what it really takes to be a leader. And so with all these skills, I've been able to apply them as I've ran for higher offices and my leadership skills that I will take from here on into my future endeavors. So providing us with the farm plot, these many more students would have the opportunity to have this SAE, which is crucial for the growing of our program. As a senior in FFA, I want to see those numbers as Hoosier degrees grow. When I was a freshman, we had many, many students getting Hoosier degrees, and this past year we were down to 4. I don't see as why there isn't a reason that we can't get those numbers up and get more students involved. They're getting real life experiences, and they're getting things that's going to be essential for their career in the future. If you look at the FFA mission statement, it's all about premier leadership and career success. And this is what we need for our students and our future and what will be leading us in success. So I really highly encourage you to take this into consideration and let us have this opportunity so many students can get involved hands-on in agriculture and that we can grow these numbers. So when we go to state convention in years to come, we can maybe have 10 or 15 members getting their state degree. Thank you very much.
My name's Jared Hensley. I'm a junior here. I'm in FFA. A little out of dress. That's all right though. This is how I usually dress. I kind of gonna wing it. I didn't write anything down, but Tom kind of had me come up here and speak. I thought about it, but anyway, I just want to say our community and our town, we've kind of forgotten the backbone of us. The backbone of this town and this community is agriculture. I mean, this school used to be on a farm, but I think that this farm plot would be a very good idea for the kids that, I've grown up on a farm, and it's an amazing thing to watch a plant grow and learn hard work. And the kids that haven't experienced that, and they could because of this, I think it would be very, very cool. So I just kind of want to say that.
Any questions?
or anything?
So I got a couple. So
Yes.
First off, well done on thinking out of the box to look for this opportunity. I think that's spot on. And as I'm hearing you present today, maybe this is an opportunity for the students to get involved. One of the things that I saw missing from the material was that, if you will, that business plan, the cost to the school.
Yep.
So what's the expectation for each one of those phases that the school has to either come up with the funds? So I heard you say that the FFA alumni will probably cover the first phase of that.
Yep.
Okay. And that's good, especially when we get to phase 3.
Yes.
What is that timing, right? Are we talking 5 years? Are we talking 2 years, right? When do you see moving into that? And I think we need to have a couple of conversations around when we talk about a building, especially when we talk about livestock, what's the risk to the school, right? To make sure when we start putting utilities out there, who's going to cover that cost? Again, coming back to the school, what's that plan, that business plan? And that might be a great thing for the students to get involved in to help out for build that as we need that. So for phase 2 for me, or phase 1, I think moving forward, I think that's a great idea. I would ask that we would hold on phase 2 and phase 3 just until we see those details, that we have an opportunity to come in and discuss those.
So as I mentioned before, we're going to be in here at the start of every phase
Absolutely.
to do a presentation in front of the board. Now, we've just got some pie in the sky numbers for phase 3. It's very preliminary. We got a number. I think there was some information in your literature you might have got for the cost of a building to put on that. But once again, is if we start this process a couple years down the road, we've got that opportunity. Well, we can start now on looking at what kind of donations are available to do something like this down the road. You know what I'm saying? So probably 2 years for phase 1 and phase 2. 3 years from now, we'll probably be coming back in here going, okay, this is what we got accomplished. Is it a success or not? If it's not, that's fine. We just turn it back over there. We put it into wildlife habitat and we go from there. If you guys are saying, hey, things are looking good, you've done what you wanted, you've done what you said you was going to do, then we start talking. That's the heavy hitters, phase 3. And I think between now and probably you're talking 3 years out, all right, at least probably for phase 3. I think we'll have a lot more numbers there. We can start working on those numbers now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is what we can do.
I'm so supportive of this concept. I love it. So I think I think we're gonna be a partner with you guys. We'd like to see it happen. So as we, I like your approach going through it as a phased approach instead of trying to do it all. I think this is going to be a great concept for the kids who are in the program and kids who may not be in the program, but they're going to learn a little something about where the food comes from. So
exactly. I mean, from my standpoint, is I was fortunate when I went through high school. We had FFA, we had Ag FFA, and I came from a small farm. It's small compared to what farms nowadays. I came from 5 acres. All right. But we did a lot on that 5 acres. My parents had a big garden. We had a small orchard there. We had a couple feeder calves, stuff like that. So you kind of got introduced to that. Plus I had the opportunity to work on even bigger farms there because I was a country boy. There was always somebody looking for some help baling hay or straw or doing something or another with the dairy cattle, something like that. So I had those opportunities. A lot of kids nowadays, they come from a subdivision. They might live on 1/3 of an acre, something like that. So this is our opportunity to expand not only the ag side of it there, but to introduce these opportunities for other folks as well. It'll be easy enough, and it's close. We don't have to get on the bus to go somewhere to make this happen. So
love it. So we'll keep working together. Do we want to move with just forward with moving forward with the approval of phase 1?
In concurrence with Ms. Trehouse and I, we would recommend that we move this discussion item to an action item to allow phase 1 to begin so they can turn the land over and get going in the spring.
All right. We'll need a motion to move it to an action.
Okay, so I will make a motion to move phase 1 into an action item.
All right. All those any questions, comments? All those in favor signify by a sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. It's now an action item. So
And then move to approve the action item.
All right, move to approve phase 1. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Well, thank you very
Look forward to
much.
seeing the progress. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Mrs. Giese, I just have to say your excitement in presenting this was amazing. Thank you very much. I think if that's what you see every day, awesome.
Well, they make life really easy for me, so that's nice. You really do have awesome students here. You guys are great.
Very good. Thank you. Excuse me. Moving on to board and administrative comments. Board comments. Are there any comments? Administrative comments. Mrs. Brown-Alley.
Just a reminder, normally next month I would bring to you textbook adoption, and I'm just reminding you we are not adopting on a regular cycle for this coming school year. I will have 1 or 2 new textbook adoptions for brand new classes that don't have any textbooks yet. So just a reminder, that will be next month.
All right, thank you. Dr. Clendening, calendar.
Just a few things. Spring break begins next Thursday. I want to remind everyone of that. 10X support grants are due on April the 3rd. And then just also a reminder that, knock on wood, we'll have no more inclement weather days, but just in case, April 26th, May 30th, and 31 are still makeup days, but we still have 3 e-learning days. So unless we have a blizzard and out a long time, we're not going to have to worry about those.
All right. Very good. Moving on to public comments. If there's any comments from the public, please come forward. Limit to 2 minutes. Please come forward and speak your name, say your name, and limit to 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, my name is Dave Stahl, and well, I'm here because all I hear is more things to spend more money on from the school board that's broke. Why not use the $6 million in the rainy day fund to pay some of these operating expenses? It's basically been a rainy day ever since this place was constructed. You know, it's obscene the amount of tax increase you're looking for when there's no discussion for any kind of fiscal reality, but just like, oh, I want this. This would be cool. What do you think of that? Let's buy that. I mean, these kids need a lesson in reality, and y'all are living like on the moon here. I don't understand. It's just unbelievable. The cap was to be a referendum in case there was an emergency, like a fire or tornado or a flood. None of these things are emergencies. These are just, you know, concocted schemes that y'all came up with, and now it's an emergency because you built more school than we could afford or you could afford to operate. Just a bunch of money being moved around like a shell game. There's no accountability for what's already been spent or taken, and there'll be no accountability for what's spent or taken in the future. I mean, I feel that much dumber just for being here this long. It's absolutely insane. I've had it. You know, I think y'all are nuts.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or any other public comments? All right. We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.